Were pretty cool to start off, and then they started to moderate a little bit in the afternoon. We are waking up to cool-ish readings, but today will actually be the warmest day out of the entire week. Right now, Parkland reporting 59, 67 in Pompano Beach to 61 in Plantation, 64 in Hollywood, and in northern Miami-Dade, temperature readings in the widespread 60s. It tends to be cooler inland. 62 in Miami Lakes, Opelika, 69 in the Grove, 65 in Coral Gables. Heading south, South Miami at 63, same for West Kendall, Cutler Bay 65, upper 60s to low 70s across the Florida Keys. Marathon at 72, 68 degrees in Big Pine Key. We do have dry conditions, don't have to worry about rain. Unfortunately, another storm system bringing severe weather, at least a leading edge around parts of the southeast. And then there's this wintry, icy mix that is pretty much moving into parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast, where there are plenty of winter weather advisories in effect. But the leading edge will impact South Florida, and then that's what's going to be bringing in that colder air. Just how low, we'll take a closer look at that in my full forecast. Good morning, South Florida. Hopefully everyone's off to a great start. And on this Monday, we just have these wispy clouds around, but overall warmer than it was yesterday to start things off. So if your commute takes you through Broward, Dade, and the Florida Keys, looking excellent, mostly dry. We do have another front that is poised to move in throughout today. Right now, a mild start. For some of you, it's going to feel cool-ish. 67 in Pompano Beach, Fort Lauderdale, 64 in Hollywood to 62 in Hialeah, 63 in West Kendall. We move on into Homestead, 66 degrees. And around the Florida Keys, it's been warmer, 70s overall, 72 in Marathon, 72 degrees in Cudjoe Key. We have calm to light winds along the East Coast, but they're going to be mainly out of the south-southwest, allowing warmer air to filter in ahead of that next front. So today will be the warmest day out of the entire week. We have this icy mix from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic region, providing for dangerous travel conditions. But up ahead is the leading edge of the front that's also triggered some severe weather. There are winter weather watches and warnings in effect that stretch into parts of the Carolinas as well. So here's a look at the advisories. Changing over to the forecast, a lot of snow, heavy snow expected for these areas. So we're going to follow the leading edge of the front as it crosses through later today. It's going to get gustier, and temperatures will drastically drop tomorrow morning into the low and mid 50s. And then we get a reinforcing shot of even colder air. So Wednesday and Thursday will possibly be the coldest so far this year, and we're talking about some 40s to wake up to. Threat of rip currents at area beaches, southeast, south-southwest winds throughout today. No advisories for boaters. There's a use caution for the Keys. Coastal waters here are at a moderate chop. With the next tide cycle, that is going to be low tide this morning at 6:55 in Miami. So highs today will be ranging closer to the 80-degree mark. And then tonight, temperature readings are expected to tumble, and we are expecting the 50s and then 40s mid to late week. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast. Thursday, we could be experiencing the coldest air so far this year. So here's a look at temperatures to get you out the door. It tends to be a bit cooler around interior portions. We have 71 in Oakland Park, 66 in Dania Beach to 61 in Plantation, 59 in Parkland, and then around sections of northern Miami-Dade, widespread 60s here. The airport at 68, 70 though in Miami Beach, where we've had a little more cloud cover settling in, and around Opelika 62 and Miami Lakes as well. So it tends to be cooler heading south. The Redlands at 60, 71 in Isla Mirada to 72 in Cudjoe Key. It is mostly dry, but here's where the next system's located, and it's been producing travel concerns and an icy mix from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic region. Your full forecast coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. Yes, you're going to need a little something, especially for TV in South Florida. We are waking up into the 60s and 70s, 68 degrees in Miami, 67 in Fort Lauderdale to 73 in Key West, 64 in Pembroke Pines. We have the wind out of the southeast, anywhere between 3 to 15 miles per hour. Humidity still low enough. And here's a look at the local storm tracking radar. Mostly dry conditions underway, and we really won't have to worry about rain over the next several days. It is dry out there. We're going to focus on temperatures and our next front that's been producing travel troubles around parts of the country. The leading edge moving across the southeast, and now the panhandle getting some wet weather. So up ahead, temperatures are going to be above average, and this afternoon will be the warmest day out of the entire week. Then tonight it gets gusty with winds quickly turning out of the northwest, and that's going to allow chilly air to filter in. So tomorrow morning we're going to be waking up into the low and mid 50s. High temperatures are going to struggle to reach to the 70-degree mark, and then we're going to have another front, a reinforcing shot of cold air, and that will set the stage for the coldest air so far this year, Wednesday into Thursday, with potentially 40s and widespread 40s in the forecast. Threat of rip currents at area beaches, seas building 3 to 5 feet. Biscayne Bay at a moderate chop. Use caution in the Keys. Seas beyond the reef building 4 to 8 feet. And the next tide cycle is going to be low tide coming up in the next hour for Fort Lauderdale and Miami, 8:07 in Key West. So highs today will be reaching the 80-degree mark. It'll still be pleasant, but much warmer overall. And then we move on into tonight. Temperature readings are going to tumble into the low and mid 50s with clearing skies. And your extended outlook, South Florida, does call for chillier air across the region. And it does look like at least through mid Friday, we're going to be on the chilly side. And then heading into the weekend, we temporarily warm up ahead of yet another cold front that will have us sporting around the sweaters and jackets. So make sure that you have those layers ready for the next couple of days. That's your 7 on 7 forecast. Thursday, we could be experiencing the coldest air so far this year. So here's a look at temperatures to get you out the door. It tends to be a bit cooler around interior portions. We have 71 in Oakland Park, 66 in Dania Beach to 61 in Plantation, 59 in Parkland, and then around sections of northern Miami-Dade, widespread 60s here. The airport at 68, 70 though in Miami Beach, where we've had a little more cloud cover settling in, and around Opa-locka 62 and Miami Lakes as well. So it tends to be cooler heading south. The Redlands at 60, 71 in Isla Mirada to 72 in Cajoki. It is mostly dry, but here's where the next system's located, and it's been producing travel concerns and an icy mix from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic region. Your full forecast coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. Yes, you're going to need a little something, especially for TV in South Florida. We are waking up into the 60s and 70s, 68 degrees in Miami, 67 in Fort Lauderdale to 73 in Key West, 64 in Pembroke Pines. We have the wind out of the southeast, anywhere between 3 to 15 miles per hour. Humidity still low enough. And here's a look at the local storm tracking radar. Mostly dry conditions underway, and we really won't have to worry about rain over the next several days. It is dry out there. We're going to focus on temperatures and our next front that's been producing travel troubles around parts of the country. The leading edge moving across the southeast, and now the panhandle getting some wet weather. So up ahead, temperatures are going to be above average, and this afternoon will be the warmest day out of the entire week. Then tonight it gets gusty with winds quickly turning out of the northwest, and that's going to allow chilly air to filter in. So tomorrow morning we're going to be waking up into the low and mid 50s. High temperatures temperatures are going to struggle to reach to the 70-degree mark. And then we're going to have another front, a reinforcing shot of cold air, and that will set the stage for the coldest air so far this year, Wednesday into Thursday, with potentially 40s and widespread 40s in the forecast. Threat of rip currents at area beaches, seas building 3 to 5 feet. Biscayne Bay at a moderate chop. Use caution in the Keys. Seas beyond the reef building 4 to 8 feet. And the next tide cycle is going to be low tide coming up in the next hour for Fort Lauderdale and Miami, 8:07 in Key West. So highs today will be reaching the 80-degree mark. It'll still be pleasant, but much warmer overall. And then we move on into tonight. Temperature readings are going to tumble into the low and mid-50s with clearing skies. And your extended outlook, South Florida, does call for chillier air across the region. And it does look like at least through mid-Friday, we're going to be on the chilly side. And then heading into the weekend, we temporarily warm up ahead of yet another cold front that will have us sporting around the sweaters and jackets. So make sure that you have those layers ready for the next couple of days. That's your 7 on 7 forecast. That is absolutely right. And yesterday we woke up pretty chilly and then temperatures just climbed to more comfortable levels. And this morning we are waking up to mild conditions, and this will possibly be the warmest day out of the entire week, because going into Tuesday, winds turn and temperatures drastically drop. So tomorrow morning we'll be back into the low and mid 50s, and then the coldest air so far this season should arrive between Wednesday and Thursday. Here's a look at temperatures to get you out the door. We're in the 60s for the most part, 67 in Dania Beach, 61 in Plantation, 64 in Sunrise to 65 in Davie. And in northern Miami-Dade, widespread 60s here. We have 68 in Hialeah, 65 in Miami Shores, and around southern Miami-Dade, it is 62 in West Kendall to 65 in Homestead, 70s for the Keys, Isla Mirada at 71. It is mostly dry, but we are following the next strong cold front. It's producing a strong line of storms across the southeast, but an icy mix headed into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. More details on this coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. We're waking up to milder air in the 60s. It is 68 in Fort Lauderdale, 67 in Miami, 73 for you in Key West, 62 in West Kendall. So in the western suburbs, it's actually feeling a little cooler. Calm winds inland up to 13 miles per hour along the coast. Humidity at 79%. And here's a look at the local storm tracking radar. Mostly dry weather underway, and it will be dry even though we'll have a front moving across the region. So here's a look at the big view and where it's situated. It is producing all sorts of travel hazards. There's an icy mix associated with this low pressure system that's moving from the Midwest into the mid-Atlantic region right now. Carolinas getting a good batch, even Virginia, of ice at this hour, and significant snow totals expected ahead. We're following the leading edge of the front that's producing already some wet weather across the panhandle, but there are some winter weather advisories in effect for this location. So we're going to follow the leading edge. There's just a very small chance of seeing an isolated shower, but it will be mostly dry. Tonight, winds turn, temperatures drastically drop into low and mid 50s. We'll have plenty of sunshine on Tuesday, and then we're going to get a reinforcing shot of cold air that will help temperatures drop into the 40s come Wednesday and Thursday, possibly being the coldest air so far this year. Your boating forecast has a small craft advisory starting this afternoon and running through Tuesday, and that's because winds will be turning out of the north and increasing significantly. But for now, they will veer out of the south-southwest, 10 to 20 knots, seas building 2 to 3 feet. Biscayne Bay at a moderate chop. And around the Florida Keys, light to a moderate chop. And there is an exercise caution. Next tide cycle will be low tide coming up at the end of this hour for Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Highs today at about 80, 81, in and out sun. We'll have warm winds. And then tonight, 56 is the forecast. So for Miami, 54 in Fort Lauderdale. And your extended outlook calls for colder conditions again tomorrow. Very chilly Wednesday, Thursday. We'll start off chilly Friday, and then it starts to warm up temporarily between Friday and Saturday. Metro 7 on 7 forecast.
Morning.
Good morning, Ethan. Lorena, South Florida. Hopefully everyone had a wonderful weekend. Weather-wise, it was beautiful, at least through tomorrow morning. Since yesterday morning, it was chilly. And then in the afternoon, that's when temperatures actually warmed up. And today promises to be the warmest day out of the entire week, because going into Tuesday, winds are going to turn and we're going to get this cold blast of air. So Wednesday, Thursday could be the coldest so far this year. So let's get you out the door. Some of you may encounter some low 60s and it may feel coolish, and it is 60 in Plantation, 66 in Sunrise, to 59 though for you in Parkland. And then along the East Coast, we've had a little more cloud cover, 68 in Fort Lauderdale to 67 in Dania Beach. And then we move on into northern Miami-Dade, Miami Lakes and Opa-locka at 67, 70 in Miami Beach to 63 in Coral Gables, southern Dade, 62 in West Kendall, with the Florida Keys in the lower 70s. But I'll be back with your full forecast for the week coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. Waking up to warmer conditions. It's currently 68 in Fort Lauderdale, 63 in Pembroke Pines to 67 in Miami. And winds are calm inland up to 9 miles per hour along the coast. Humidity at 79%. And here's a look at the local storm tracking radar. Mostly dry weather underway, and really we won't have to worry about rain over the next several days. Our main weather story will be the cold air that's on the way. And we've already been on the chilly side over the weekend. Now there's this major winter storm tracking toward the Central Plains, Mid-Atlantic region right now. It's creating a large swath of snow, significant accumulations possible, 6 to 12 inches. But we are looking at pretty much heavy freezing rain, creating damaging ice on the roadways into the mid-Atlantic states and even central Appalachians. And there are advisories in effect. Up ahead, the leading edge is what we're going to be following closely. And there are winter weather advisories across the region. So we will be following the leading edge ahead. It will be warm, and we're going to be the warmest the entire week today, with high temperatures in the upper 70s to low 80s. Tomorrow, temperatures will tumble into the low and mid 50s, and throughout the day we'll be sitting nicely in the 70s. But then we get this shot of cold air that will be filtering in Wednesday into Thursday, with possibly widespread 40s in the forecast. Your marine outlook calls for a small craft advisory to go into effect this afternoon and run through Tuesday for Biscayne Bay and our offshore waters. Today, winds out of the south-southwest, 10 to 20 knots, seas building 2 to 3 feet. Biscayne Bay at a moderate chop, light to a moderate chop in the Keys, with winds shifting this afternoon out of the south and west. And the next tide cycle, that's going to be low tide coming up in just a couple of minutes in Fort Lauderdale, and then at 6:55 in Miami. So for today, in and out sun, warm winds, temperatures between 78 and 81 degrees. Tonight, 56 is the forecast low in Miami, 54 in Fort Lauderdale. And your extended outlook, South Florida, calls for cold air Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, milder by the PM temporarily as another front moves in on Saturday. Metro 7 on 7 forecast.
About it, Viv?
We are.
Yes, and this is the opportunity that we get to sport around the extra layers that we have while we can, and we're going to be sporting them around for several days, believe it or not. So today will actually be the warmest day out of the entire week, because going into Tuesday, winds turn and we get this cold blast of air, and possibly experiencing the coldest air so far this year between Wednesday and Thursday. So here's a look at temperatures to get you out the door. a little warmer than yesterday morning. 67 in Oakland Park, 68 in Dania Beach, and then out west, 66 in Sunrise, 67 in Davie, and around northern Miami-Dade, 60s too. We have 62 in Miami Lakes, 65 at the airport, 71 in Sunny Isles Beach, but then heading south, 60 in West Kendall to 64 in Homestead. Temperatures in the lower 70s around the Florida Keys. It's mostly dry. We'll keep things dry, but we're going to be following our next system that's producing damaging ice on the roadways around parts of the mid-Atlantic states. And our forecast does call for it to be a warmer one, mix of sun and clouds, high of 80 degrees. And then tonight, temperatures drastically drop. More details on that coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. We are waking up to partly cloudy skies. There are these wispy clouds out there, but overall it is looking fine out there. Mostly dry conditions if your commute takes you through Broward, Dade, and the Florida Keys at this hour. We're not expecting rain, or at least measurable rain, in quite some time. Right now it is 64 in Pompano, 63 in Hollywood, 65 in Miami to 60 in West Kendall. Homestead reporting 64. And then we take a look at the Florida Keys. This is where we're finding more in the way of 70s this morning, so much warmer to start off than yesterday. 73 in Key West with calm winds along the East Coast, but they're going to be more southerly today in response to a front that's producing travel troubles for sure from the Central Plains into the Mid-Atlantic region. And there's heavy freezing rain that will create damaging ice on the roadways. Snow totals could be anywhere between 6 to 12 inches, but up ahead we're following the leading edge that's producing some rain around the Panhandle. But these areas here under winter weather watches and warnings. As far as our forecast is concerned today, the warmest day of the week, highs in the upper 70s to low 80s. Tomorrow, much colder with lows in the low to mid 50s with daytime highs in the upper 70s. We'll have plenty of sunshine, and then a reinforcing shot of cold air settles in, and that will have us probably feeling the coldest air so far this year. Potentially widespread 40s on Wednesday into Thursday. Small craft advisory goes into effect this afternoon. South-southwest winds 10 to 20 knots. Seas building 2 to 3 feet. Biscayne Bay at a moderate chop. Going between a light to moderate chop in the Keys. No advisories for now, but there could be a small craft advisory required by tonight as wind and seas increase. Seas inside the reef for now, building 2 to 3 feet. And the next tide cycle will be low tide at 8:07 in Key West. Highs today at about 80 degrees with in and out sun. And then tonight, winds increase, churning cooler for sure, with your extended outlook calling for the 40s to be felt Wednesday and Thursday. We'll finish off the week chilly. Slight warm up Saturday with another front moving in. And that's your 7 on 7.
What we can expect weather-wise today. Good morning, Viv.
Good morning, Ethan. Lorraine in South Florida, thank you for starting your day with us. It's back to work and school for a lot of you, and today will be the warmest day out of the entire week because going into Tuesday, winds turn and temperatures drastically drop. In fact, Wednesday, Thursday could be the coldest air so far this year being felt in South Florida. And right now, looking at temperatures in the lower 60s in spots where we've had clearer skies overnight, but for the most part in the 60s everywhere. 66 in Oakland Park, 60 in Plantation, and in northern Miami-Dade, widespread 60s. Miami Lakes at 62, 64 Sweetwater, but at the beach it's 70 degrees. Heading south into South Miami, it's 59, 60 in West Kendall, so cooler there, but in the 70s across the Keys. Key Largo reporting 70, 73 in Key West. It is mostly dry. It'll stay mostly dry, but here's our next cold front that's producing some wet weather around the Panhandle, and our day planners calling for a mix of sun and clouds. Highs to climb to about 80 degrees, and then tonight temperatures will drop. Your full forecast coming up in a few minutes. Morning, South Florida. We are waking up to milder readings, so not as cool as it was yesterday at this hour. Certainly warming up. 68 in Fort Lauderdale, 73 in Key West, 63 in Pembroke Pines to 60 in Kendall. So it tends to be cooler inland. And here's a look at the winds. Calm inland up to 8 miles per hour along the coast, and they will be mainly out of the south-southwest throughout today. That's why it promises to be the warmest day out of the entire week, but this is all ahead of a strong cold front. It is mostly dry right now on the radar. It'll stay dry over the next few days, where we have rain that's around parts of the panhandle with the leading edge of a front, and then you have low pressure attached to it. So from parts of the central plains into the mid-Atlantic states, we have this large swath of wintry weather, 6 to 12 inches of snow, and then heavy freezing rains going to create damaging ice, especially around the mid-Atlantic states throughout today. And you could clearly see the rain changing over to freezing rain and snow. Advisories are currently in effect for these locations. So here's what we can expect. Warmer air, upper 70s, low 80s this afternoon. And then tonight, as the front crosses through, winds turn and temperatures will drastically tumble into the low and mid 50s throughout the day. Temperatures will climb into the lower 70s. And then we're going to get this reinforcing shot of cold air Wednesday into Thursday. And most models are suggesting that there could be widespread 40s and the coldest air so far this year. Small craft advisory will start this afternoon and run through Tuesday for Biscayne, Maine, or offshore waters, seas building 2 to 3 feet. No advisories right now for the Keys, but a small craft advisory will likely be required for tonight. Early on, winds south-southeast. This afternoon, shifting out of the southwest. Light to moderate chop. And the next tide cycle is going to be low tide at 8:07 in Key West. Highs today between 78 and 81 degrees with in and out sun. And then tonight, winds increase and temperatures fall. 56 is the forecast low for Miami. And your extended outlook calls for colder air again to be felt tomorrow. It's going to stay very chilly at least through Friday morning, then milder by the afternoon. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
Hey, Viv, good morning.
And good morning, Tavares. Olivia, South Florida. We are waking up to calm weather conditions, but it's warmer than it was yesterday to start things off. But by tonight, winds are going to turn and we're going to get this cold blast of air settling in, and we are possibly going to experience the coldest air so far this year between Wednesday and Thursday. So let's get you out the door and show you what it's like. Certainly not as chilly as it was yesterday to start things off. It is 61 in Plantation. Then you take a look at the East Coast, mid to upper 60s. Fort Lauderdale and Dania Beach at 69. Then we move on into northern Miami-Dade, 60s to here. Miami Shores at 63, 67 at the airport. South Miami at 60, so it tends to be a little cooler down south. Cutler Bay at 65, 70s for the Florida Keys at this hour. Key West, good morning to you, at 72. It is mostly dry here in South Florida, and it'll stay mostly dry. Parts of the Panhandle seeing some wet weather with the leading edge of our next front. Your full forecast coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. Waking up to calm weather conditions. It's looking nice outside with a few wispy looking clouds, and on the radar, it's mostly dry. Will continue mostly dry over the next several days. Big view showing that we will be following closely a stronger cold front, and by tonight, temperatures will drop once again. Currently 63 in Pompano, 64 in Hollywood to 67 in Miami, 63 in West Kendall. Then we move on into Homestead, 64 degrees, but it's been in the 70s across the Florida Keys. Islamorada at 72, 72 for you in Key West, with a wind out of the south, allowing warmer air to filter in, and today will be the warmest day out of the entire week. So here's a look at that next system. It is producing heavy freezing rain, and that's going to create dangerous ice conditions across parts of the mid-Atlantic states, but there's a large swath of snow, 6 to 12 inches possible, and there are winter weather advisories for these areas. We're going to be paying close attention to the front because it'll cross through pretty much dry, and then winds increase tonight, and then temperatures tumble as a result. In the morning, we'll be waking up into the low and mid 50s, but then there's going to be a reinforcing shot of cold air that will be moving in Wednesday into Thursday. So some widespread 40s a possibility. Small craft advisory goes into effect this afternoon and it'll run through Tuesday for the Dade-Broward coastal waters. Florida Keys, no advisories, but a small craft advisory will likely be required by tonight. Coastal waters light to moderate chop. Next tide cycle, that is going to be high tide at 12:54 in Fort Lauderdale. Highs today, anywhere between 78 and 81 degrees. We'll have in and out sun. And by tonight, temperatures will fall into the 50s and 60s for the Florida Keys. But get ready to continue sporting around the extra layers at least through Friday morning. We warm up a tad heading into Friday afternoon and Saturday, but then another front moves in. That's your 7 on 7 forecast. Good morning, South Florida. Nation's midsection looking pretty good. But then there's this large swath of snow from the Central Plains into the Mid-Atlantic region, and then you have this icy mix across the Mid-Atlantic, making for dangerous travel conditions. And then up ahead, there's a front that stretches into the Panhandle where we have some rain. And because of this system moving into the eastern half of the country, well, we have warmer winds out of the southwest. So temperatures today to start things off running a good 7 to 12 degrees warmer in comparison to yesterday at this time. And right now we are at 69 in Fort Lauderdale, 67 in Miami, 72 in Key West, with the wind south-southwest 3 to 13 miles per hour. And we are looking at temperatures climbing into the lower 80s. So the warmest day out of the entire week. There could be a stray shower with this front, but we're not expecting pretty much measurable rain at all. So then heading into the overnight, winds increase and temperatures drastically fall into the low and mid 50s across Broward and Miami-Dade, 50s, 60s for the Keys. Small craft advisory goes into effect this afternoon. One will likely be required for tonight in the Keys with the next tide cycle. High tide at 123 in Miami. Highs today between 78 and 81 degrees. Then tonight, yes, we're going to be feeling these temperatures tumbling, and it will be pretty much a cold week with a slight bump in temperatures on Saturday ahead of yet another front. That's your 7. Good morning, South Florida. Waking up to mild conditions, but it's generally warmer in comparison to yesterday at this time. 67 in Miami, 69 in Fort Lauderdale, 72 already in Key West. But then it tends to be a little cooler out west. At West Kendall reporting 63 in Pines at 64. Calm winds inland up to 9 miles per hour along the coast. Humidity starting to climb. And here's a look at the local storm tracking radar. Dry conditions underway. Panhandle of Florida seeing some wet weather with a front that will be following. That is attached to an area of low pressure, providing for a wintry mix from the Central Plains into the Mid-Atlantic states where there are plenty of winter weather advisories and a dangerous icy mix setting up shop for the Mid-Atlantic states. Here in South Florida, highs will climb into the upper 70s, low 80s, and then tonight, that's when a front crosses through. Winds increase significantly out of the northwest to help temperatures tumble into the 50s, and tomorrow's highs will be in the 70s. But then we get this reinforcing shot of cold air. So Wednesday into Thursday, temperatures will fall possibly into the widespread 40s. Your boating forecast right now looks okay, but heading into the afternoon, that's when a small craft advisory will be going into effect through Tuesday. South-southwest winds 10 to 20 knots, seas building 2 to 3 feet. Biscayne Bay at a moderate chop. We don't have any advisories in effect for the Florida Keys right now, but a small craft advisory will likely be required by tonight. Southwest winds later today up to 15 knots. Coastal waters light to a moderate chop. And the next tide cycle will be high tide, 123 in Miami, 245 in Key West. So for today, in and out sun, Temperatures will range between 78 and 81 degrees. By tonight, the forecast low for Miami is at 56-54 in Fort Lauderdale. And on your extended outlook, South Florida, it'll be colder again tomorrow. Cold, very cold Wednesday, Thursday. We'll start off in the 50s Friday, milder by the afternoon, and then by Saturday, we're going to get increasing clouds, but another front settles in, so we'll be sporting around the sweaters and jackets for quite some time. Not your 7 on 7 forecast.
No for the week. Good morning, Viv.
Good morning, Lorena. Ethan, South Florida. Yes, we have a slight warm up. It's very brief, and then it's back to pretty cold by South Florida standards. So going into Tuesday, we'll have winds turning and colder air filtering in, and we could possibly be experiencing the coldest air so far this year between Wednesday and Thursday. So here's a look at temperatures. Much warmer to start off than yesterday, really. It is 70 in Tamarack, 71 in Davie, the same for Dania Beach, Hollywood at 67. In Miami-Dade County, we have 65 degrees in Miami Shores. Hialeah reporting 69. Down south, 70 already in West Kendall to 73 in Homestead. Temperatures have been in the 70s all morning long around the Florida Keys, 73 for you in Isla Mirada, with the radar showing dry conditions. Where it's not dry, that's around parts of the Panhandle. But take a look at the Mid-Atlantic region, the rain changing over to freezing rain and snow, and there's a large swath of snow, 6 to 12 inches possible for these areas that are under winter weather advisories. For us, warming up into the 80s, and then overnight we're expecting temperatures to tumble just how low. We'll have a closer look at that in my full forecast. Good morning, South Florida. We are waking up into the upper 60s to low 70s, so a much warmer start at this time versus yesterday, and that's because we're awaiting another cold front, and it's already impacting parts of the Panhandle, but the Mid-Atlantic states getting this wintry mix. Currently 71 in Miami, 70 in Pompano and West Kendall, 67 in Pembroke Pines, with the winds out of the south, 6 to 12 miles per hour, and that's helping temperatures to climb, as well as the humidity, which is sitting at 70%. So here's a look at the local storm tracking radar. It's quiet here in South Florida, and then across the Panhandle, that's where there's a line of shower activity happening now, but you could see how the rain changes over to freezing rain and snow, and there's a large swath of it, 6 to 12 inches of snow possible all the way from the Central Plains to the Mid-Atlantic states, including Metro Washington, D.C. But around West Virginia now looking at a dangerous icy mix. There are winter weather watches and warnings in effect for these locations right now. So that is headed to the northeast. We're going to be following the leading edge of this front, so it'll be much warmer as a result, and highs are going to climb anywhere between 78 and 81 degrees. Heading into tonight, the front crosses through, and winds will be on the increase out of the northwest, and that's what's going to help chilly air get here. So tomorrow morning, instead of the 60s, we'll be in the low to mid 50s with afternoon highs in the lower 70s. By Wednesday, Thursday, we get a reinforcing shot of cold air, and a lot of areas will be waking up into the 40s. This afternoon, small craft advisory goes into effect for the Dade-Broward coastal waters, seas building 2 to 3 feet. Heading into tonight, an advisory could be required for the Florida Keys as winds veer out of the northwest. In the meantime, throughout today, they'll be out of the southwest, coastal waters light to a moderate chop. And the next tide cycle will be high tide, 123 in Miami, 245 in Key West. So highs today in the upper 70s to low 80s with in and out sun. Tonight, winds increase and temperatures tumble. 56 is the forecast, low in Miami, 54 in Fort Lauderdale. The Florida Keys will have a mix of the 50s and 60s, but it gets cold again Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll start off chilly on Friday, milder readings temporarily in the afternoon Friday, because on Saturday, another front moves in. Metro 7 on 7 forecast. And we're going to be following the leading edge of that winter storm because it will cross through South Florida. And right now it's impacting parts of the panhandle with a little bit of rain, but we're really not expecting much with it. But ahead, it is warming up and we feel it already this morning in the 60s and 70s. Heading into the afternoon, that's when temperatures will climb into the lower 80s, anywhere between 76 and 81 degrees, forecast high for Miami. Then we move on into tonight. The front crosses through, winds increase and turn gusty out of the northwest, and that's what will help after midnight. Temperatures drastically tumble into the 50s, and we're looking at the low to mid 50s across Broward and Miami-Dade, 50s and 60s for the Florida Keys. So make sure that you haven't put away the sweaters and jackets that you used over the weekend because you're going to be sporting them around the remainder of the week. We will have a small craft advisory starting this afternoon for the Dade and Broward coastal waters. One may be required tonight for the Florida Keys as winds veer out of the northwest. Right now, coastal waters light to moderate chop. And in the 1 o'clock hour, we're going to have high tide happening between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. So for today, highs in the upper 70s to low 80s, and then it gets cold tonight, and it will stay cold by South Florida standards all the way through Friday morning. Slight bump in temperatures ahead of yet another front for the weekend. Metro 7 on 7. Good morning, South Florida. So far, so good. Waking up to a lot of sunshine. It looks beautiful outside, and it's also warmer in response to another front that will be moving in across the region. So brief warm up, and then it gets cold again overnight. And on the radar, at least it's dry. We are going to keep things mostly dry today. Currently 70 in Pompano Beach to 67 in Hollywood. Then we move on into Hialeah, 67, 71 at the airport, 70 in Kendall, Homestead reporting 73 degrees. And the Florida Keys are also in the 70s. You've been in the 70s all morning long. 75 in Key Largo, 73 in Cudjoe and Marathon, with the wind turning out of the southwest, anywhere between 6 to 14 miles per hour, and this is going to help temperatures climb into the upper 70s to low 80s this afternoon. So nation's midsection looking good right now, but anywhere from parts of the Central Plains into the Mid-Atlantic states, we're seeing a large swath of snow, 6 to 12 plus inches possible, plenty of pretty much freezing rain, causing dangerous ice conditions across the Mid-Atlantic states now, and a lot of winter weather advisories there. But the leading edge is currently over the panhandle of Florida. So temperatures are going to climb this afternoon into the lower 80s. And then tonight, the front crosses through late, but winds will be increasing out of the northwest, and that should allow temperatures to tumble into the low and mid 50s heading into tomorrow morning. 50s and 60s for the Florida Keys. Your boating forecast right now looks okay, but heading into the afternoon, that's when a small craft advisory will be going into effect, and it'll run through Tuesday. And Biscayne Bay right now is at a moderate chop. Florida Keys, no advisories now, but tonight an advisory may be required. And the next tide cycle will be high tide at 123 in Miami, 245 in Key West. So for today, in and out sun, warm winds, temperatures between 78 and 81 degrees, and then the forecast low for Miami will be 56, 54 in Fort Lauderdale. Your extended outlook does call for colder air again between Tuesday and Friday morning. Then we warm up a tad on Saturday as another front settles in. Metro 7 on 7 forecast.